He shattered her armor with one strike. And in that moment, she knew the war had lasted for generations. Humanity's colonies had spread far into the spiral arm of the Milky Way, but the expansion had not gone uncontested. For decades, they clashed with the Valran Dominion, a warrior race who wore living armor forged from symbiotic organisms. That armor was more than protection. It was sacred, bonded to them at birth, growing with them, strengthening with every victory. To shatter a Valran's armor was not only to defeat them in battle, it was to wound their very soul. No human had ever done it. Until him, the beginning. Cale Mercer was not supposed to be a soldier. He was the son of an engineer from New Titan Station, a boy more familiar with welding torches and gravity stabilizers and rifles. But the war had pulled in everyone, and by 22 he was drafted into the Terran Defense Corps. His talent wasn't in tactics or marksmanship. It was in sheer endurance. He fought like a man who had nothing left to lose. The Battle of Rigel Prime was supposed to be routine. The Valran had raided a mining colony, and Cale's squad was dispatched to push them back. But nothing about it was routine. He remembered the ground trembling as the Valran descended, towering figures, clad in their black and gold symbiotic armor that writhed like it was alive. Plasma bolts lit the night sky. Cale's squad scattered, but the Valran leader cut through them like they were nothing. She was unlike any enemy he had ever seen, taller than him by a head, with horns cresting her helmet, her living armor gleaming with a predatory sheen. Every movement was graceful, deliberate, devastating. Her name, though he would only learn it much later, was Seraph. She was not just a commander. She was heir to the Dominion's throne. But to Cale that night, she was simply death incarnate, and she was coming straight for him. Their first clash. Cale raised a pulse rifle, firing until the barrel overheated. But the shots dissipated across her armor like rain striking stone. She closed the distance in seconds. One strike of her plasma blade, and his weapon was gone, melted into slag. She swung again, aiming to cleave him in half. Something primal in Cale roared to life. He caught a fragment of rebar from the rubble, its edge jagged, its length heavy. With no training, no plan, he swung it with all his strength. Every ounce of desperation, rage, and will to live poured into that single motion. The sound was not what he expected. It wasn't metal against metal. It was a scream. Her armor shrieked as the rebar connected, splitting across her chest plate. For the first time in her life, Sarah felt the bond between her and her living armor falter, a wound she had never imagined possible. She staggered back, staring at him, not in fury, but in shock. In that instant, she knew this human was not like the others. The battle ended in chaos. Reinforcement arrived on both sides. Cale was dragged away by surviving squad mates. Seraph pulled back by her warriors. But neither forgot. Cale couldn't shake the memory of that moment. The look in her eyes through the crack in her helmet. Not hatred, not fear. Something else. Recognition. For Seraph, it was worse. In Valran culture, armor was sacred. No blade forged by human science had ever broken it. Yet this untrained human with a piece of rusted rebar had done what no champion could. Her bond or armor felt incomplete now, a wound that would not heal. And every time she closed her eyes, she saw him. Months later, the war dragged on. Cale survived battle after battle. Though he had no illusions of glory, he had become a symbol among his comrades, the man who had cracked the Valran's armor. Soldiers told the tale around fires, as if it were legend, but Cale felt no pride. All he remembered were the faces of the ones he couldn't save. Seraph, meanwhile, was summoned before the Dominion High Council. Whispers spread among her people. Her armor, the strongest among them, had been scarred by a human. Some called it weakness. Others called it destiny. The council sent her on a mission, track the human down, not just to kill him, but to know him. For if a human could do this, the Dominion needed answers. The second encounter. It was on the moon of Thalos, amid broken ruins of a long-dead civilization. Cale's squad was scavenging supplies when the sky split with fire. Valran warships descended, and with them, her. Cale recognized her instantly, though her armor bore a jagged scar across the chest where it struck her. His squad panicked, but Sarah spoke, not in Valran tongue, but in fractured human dialect. "Stay. Fight me? Kale knew he should run, but something in her voice, commanding yet yearning, held him in place. He dismissed his squad, stepping forward with only his blade. Their battle was unlike any other. No guns, no reinforcements. Just steel, fury, and the echo of two worlds colliding. She struck with elegance, honed skill. He fought with raw survival instinct, adapting with every blow. And again, impossibly, his weapon connected. Her armor split further. She gasped, falling to one knee. Kale raised his weapon for the finishing strike, but stopped. He saw her face then, revealed beneath the cracked helm. Not the monster he had imagined. Eyes of burning gold, filled with defiance, but also something else, recognition, the same he had felt. He lowered his blade. "Why aren't you afraid of me?" She stared at him, breathing hard. "Because only you can break me." The bond. After that day, everything changed. Their battles became meetings. At first, in secret, clashes where neither delivered the final blow. They would fight until exhaustion, then speak in fragments. She told him of the Dominion, of her role as heir, of the weight of 1,000 generations bound to her armor. He told her of Earth, of what it meant to fight not for conquest but survival, of his lost family. Each time, the line between enemy and something else blurred. They no longer fought to kill, but to know. Kale learned that the Devouring armor was symbiotic, feeding on their strength, reflecting their spirit. To shatter, it was unthinkable. Yet with him, hers cracked with every strike. She came to believe it was not just his strength, but their bond. Somehow, on a level neither understood, they were connected. For Seraph, raised in a culture where love was weakness and vulnerability shameful, this realization was terrifying. Yet every time she looked at Kale, she felt something she had never known, freedom. For Kale, weary of endless war, she was the first light in the darkness. The turning point. War escalated. Both sides prepared for final conflict, a battle that would decide the fate of the Spiral Arm. Kale was promoted, reluctantly, to lieutenant. Seraph was crowned as war chief. Their destinies pulled them apart, but neither could let go. On the eve of the battle, they met one last time, in the ruins where they had first truly seen each other. "You know tomorrow we must fight," Kale said quietly. Seraph's eyes burned with conflict. "If I defeat you, my people will follow me without question. If you defeat me, yours will call you a hero. Either way, we are bound by blood." He reached out, touching the scarred edge of her armor. "Then let it break. Let's break it." She trembled, for the first time in her life. "If I fall, Kale, know that I was never afraid of you, only of what you made me feel." The final battle. The skies of Rigel Prime burned once more, fleets clashing in orbit, soldiers dying by the thousands on the ground. And in the center of it all, Kale and Seraph, locked in combat, watched by both armies. Every strike echoed across the battlefield. Her armor splintered further with each blow, golden shards falling like glass. He bled from wounds, barely able to stand, but he did not stop. At last, with a final roar, he swung, not with skill, but with everything he was. The blow landed square across her chest. Her armor shattered. Not cracked, not splintered, shattered. The living symbiote screamed and withered away, leaving her bare, vulnerable before him. Silence fell across the battlefield. Kale stood over her, weapon raised. The armies watched, waiting for the killing stroke. But instead, he dropped the blade. He reached out his hand. And Seraph, her eyes wide, filled with tears she had never shed, understood. In that moment, stripped of her armor, stripped of everything she thought defined her, she knew. Not weakness, not defeat. Love. The ending. The war did not end that day with victory or defeat. It ended with something greater. Kale helped Seraph to her feet, his hand steady in hers. Before both armies, human and Devouring, they stood together, not as enemies, but as something new. The Dominion Council saw their heir choosing peace. The humans saw their soldier sparing the life of his greatest foe. And both sides realized what neither could admit before. The war had cost too much already. Treaties followed. Tensions lingered, but so did hope. Kale and Seraph became symbols. Two warriors bound by something stronger than armor, stronger than blood. Years later, they would stand side by side, leaders of a fragile alliance, their love whispered in both languages. And whenever Seraph was asked why she, the fiercest warrior of her kind, had laid down her blade, she would answer only this: because he shattered my armor with one strike. And in that moment, I knew I no longer wished to fight.